The transport ship's docking clamps locked with a heavy thud against prison station X-227. Captain Jack Stone stood at the viewport, staring at the massive structure that would be his home for the next 5 years. The space station looked like a giant metal spider, with 8 massive arms stretching out from a central hub. Each arm held thousands of cells, designed to contain the galaxy's most dangerous criminals. Stone adjusted his collar, still not used to the weight of his new captain's insignia. At 35, he was young for this position, but his record in Earth's maximum security prisons had caught someone's attention. Still, this assignment made no sense. Why would a galactic prison want a human to run their guard training program? The airlock cycled, and Stone stepped through with his single bag of belongings. A tall, gray-skinned alien waited for him, wearing the black and silver uniform of prison administration. The alien's 4 eyes blinked in sequence as it consulted a datavat. "Captain Stone," the alien said, its translator making the words sound almost musical. "I am Director Gray. Welcome to X-227. Stone shook the director's hand, noting how the alien seemed surprised by the gesture. "Thank you, Director. I must admit, I'm curious about why I was chosen for this position. There must be more qualified candidates among the spacefaring species." Gray's skin shifted color slightly, showing patches of darker gray, a sign of amusement, according to Stone's briefing materials. "Walk with me, Captain. I'll explain what I can." They moved through the station's pristine corridors, passing guards of various species. Stone noticed something odd. Every time they passed a cell block, the guard at the checkpoint was human. Not most of them. All of them. "You've noticed our staffing pattern," Gray said, watching Stone's reaction. "It's not a coincidence. Humans have become essential to our operations here." Stone stopped walking. "Essential? How?" "We're newcomers to the galactic community. Most species still think of Earth as a backwater death world." "Perhaps that's exactly why," Gray replied cryptically. They reached a viewing area overlooking one of the cell blocks. Below them, hundreds of cells lined the walls, holding creatures of all shapes and sizes. Some were massive, with multiple limbs and armor-like skin. Others looked almost like mist contained in energy fields. A human guard walked past the cells, making her rounds. Stone watched in amazement as the inmates, even the largest and most fearsome-looking ones, backed away from their cell fronts as she passed. "That's Guard Miller," Gray explained. "One of our best. Watch how the inmates react to her presence." Stone observed carefully. The inmates weren't just backing away. They were actively avoiding eye contact with Miller. Even the massive creature that looked like a cross between a bear and a tank, with skin that could probably stop bullets, pressed itself against the back wall of its cell. "I don't understand," Stone said. "Those inmates could easily overpower a human in terms of pure strength. Why do they seem afraid?" Gray's skin rippled with dark patterns. "That, Captain Stone, is exactly what you're here to help us understand and utilize. Something about human guards keeps our inmates compliant in ways our most advanced security systems cannot match. We've had 0 successful escapes since we began placing humans on guard duty." Stone looked down at the cell block again, watching Miller continue her rounds with calm professionalism. "And you want me to train more guards to do whatever it is she's doing?" "Precisely," Gray said. "Though I should warn you, the full truth of why humans are so effective might be unsettling. Are you prepared to learn things about your own species that even most humans don't know?" Stone thought about the weight of his new responsibility and the mystery before him. Looking at his alien superior, he nodded firmly. "Yes, sir. I need to know everything if I'm going to do this job right." Gray's skin turned almost black. "Good. Because there's a reason we classify this information. The story of how we discovered humanity's unique talent for prison security is not a pleasant one, but it's one you need to hear." 3 weeks into his new position, Captain Stone stood in the security control room, watching the dozens of screens that showed every corner of prison station X227. He had spent these weeks observing the human guards, trying to understand what made them special. Today was different. Today, he would see it firsthand. The alert came without warning. A red light flashed on the main console, accompanied by a soft but urgent beeping. One of the control room operators, a thin, blue-skinned alien named Blue, called out, "Captain. Cell Block D, Level 3. Thoraxian prisoner attempting escape." Stone leaned forward, focusing on the relevant screen. The Thoraxian was massive, easily 12 feet tall with armor-like plates covering its body. It had somehow broken free during exercise period and was now charging down the corridor. 2 alien guards had already been knocked aside, their stun weapons having no effect on the creature's natural armor. "Send backup, Toe." Stone started to order, but Blue interrupted him. "Guard Lisa is already responding," Blue said, multiple fingers dancing across the control panel to show a better view. Stone watched as Lisa, a human guard who barely reached the Thoraxian's chest height, walked calmly around the corner and stood in the middle of the corridor. She carried no weapon. She didn't even take a defensive stance. She just stood there, looking directly at the charging prisoner. "She's going to get killed." Stone moved to hit the emergency response button, but Blue's hand stopped him. "Watch," Blue whispered. The Thoraxian, running at full speed, suddenly slowed. Its 6 eyes locked with Lisa's 2. The massive alien's charge became a jog, then a walk, then it stopped completely. The creature's plates rattled, a sound Stone would later learn was their version of shivering. Lisa took 1 step forward. The Thoraxian took 1 step back. "Return to your cell," Lisa said quietly, but firmly. Her voice carried clearly through the security feed. The Thoraxian, a being that could tear through metal walls and shrug off stun blasts, lowered all 4 of its arms in a submissive gesture and began walking backward toward its cell. Lisa followed at a steady pace, never breaking eye contact. Once the Thoraxian was secure in its cell, Lisa activated the enhanced barrier field and called in the all clear. Only then did she let out a deep breath. Stone sat heavily in a nearby chair. That's impossible. I've read the specs on Thoraxians. They're apex predators on their home world. Nothing scares them. Nothing. Blue made a chirping sound that the translator rendered as a laugh. "Nothing except humans, it seems." "Did you notice how she maintained eye contact? That's key. We've studied this. There's something about human eyes, about the way you look at things. To most species, it's unsettling." Stone thought back to his earlier observations, the way inmates backed away from human guards, the way they avoided eye contact. Even Director Gray sometimes seemed uncomfortable with prolonged eye contact during their meetings. "I need to talk to Lisa," Stone decided. "And I need to see the records of when this was first discovered." Blue's color darkened slightly. "You'll want to look up the Red Day in the archives. But I warn you, Captain, some knowledge changes you. After you learn why we really started using human guards, you might wish you hadn't asked." Stone stood up, straightening his uniform. "Whatever it is, I need to know. These are my people I'm putting on the line. I need to understand what we're really doing here." "Very well," Blue said, inputting a code into the computer. "Archive access granted. The file you want is labeled Incident Report 47B, the Red Day." "But Captain," Blue's voice became very quiet, "I recommend not reading it alone." Stone nodded, already pulling up the file. As the first images loaded on his screen, his eyes widened. Now he understood why Director Gray had been so cryptic. Now he was beginning to understand everything. The archived footage from 15 years ago played on Stone's screen in the dim light of his office. Beside him sat guard Tom Reed, now Chief of Security, the only person still on staff who had been present during the Red Day. His hair had gone gray, but his eyes were sharp as he watched the old recordings with Stone. We had no human guards back then, Tom explained, his voice quiet. The prison administration thought humans were too fragile, too primitive to handle high-security prisoners. That day proved them wrong. The security feed showed chaos. A power failure had disabled the cell block's force fields. Over 300 of the galaxy's most dangerous criminals had escaped into the corridors at once. The alien guards, despite their advanced weapons and armor, were quickly overwhelmed. Nobody died that day, Tom said, pausing the footage. That's the most amazing part. 300 violent criminals, 40 injured guards, but not a single death. Do you want to know why? Stone nodded, unable to look away from the screen as Tom resumed playback. The footage showed a younger Tom, who had been visiting the station as a security consultant, walking out into the main corridor. He carried no weapon. The rioting prisoners, a terrifying mix of creatures that could crush steel and dissolve flesh, all turned to face him. I did what came naturally, Tom explained to Stone. I started walking. Slowly, steadily, making eye contact with each prisoner I passed. And something happened that nobody expected. On screen, the massive aliens began backing away. The ones who met Tom's gaze longest were the first to return to their cells voluntarily. Those who tried to stand their ground started trembling, their natural weapons and armor somehow useless against the simple presence of a single human walking calmly through the chaos. We didn't understand it then, Tom continued, but that day changed everything. The prison administration classified the footage immediately and started quietly recruiting human guards. But they needed to understand why it worked. Stone watched as the last of the prisoners returned to their cells, some literally climbing over each other to get away from Tom's unwavering gaze. And did they figure it out? Tom nodded. Dr. White, our xenobiologist, made the connection. It's not about strength or weapons or technology. It's about what humans are, deep in our DNA. He pulled up another file, this one showing various alien species in their natural habitats. Every sentient species in the galaxy evolved as either prey or ambush predators. Even the most dangerous ones hunt by hiding, striking quickly, or using overwhelming force. But humans, we're different. Stone began to understand. We're pursuit predators. Exactly, Tom said. We evolved to walk our prey to death, to track it for days, never letting it rest, never letting it escape. Most species can't comprehend that kind of relentless pursuit. When they look into human eyes, they don't just see a predator. They see something that will never, ever stop hunting them. Stone thought about Lisa facing down the Thoraxian. That's why the steady walk works so well. Why maintaining eye contact is so important. It triggers something primal in them, Tom agreed. Every instinct they have screams that if they run, we'll pursue. If they fight, we'll wear them down. The only safe option is to submit. And that's why this information is classified, Stone realized. If the general public knew. Panic. Tom finished. Mass panic across the galaxy. So instead, we use this knowledge carefully, ethically. We maintain order without violence, prevent escapes without bloodshed. But there's a price to knowing this truth, Captain. Once you understand what you really are, what humanity really is, you can never look at the galaxy the same way again. Stone looked at his own reflection in the dark screen, seeing his human eyes in a new light. So what do we do with this knowledge? We do our job, Tom said simply. We protect everyone. The guards, the prisoners, the public, by being what we naturally are. Not monsters, not heroes. Just humans. Dr. White's laboratory took up an entire section of Prison Station X-227's research wing. Holograms of various alien species floated in the air, showing skeletal structures, muscle systems, and brain patterns. Captain Stone walked between these ghostly images, following the excited xenobiologist as she explained her findings. It's fascinating, truly fascinating, Dr. White said, her wild gray hair escaping from its bun, as she moved quickly from display to display. We've been studying this effect for 15 years, but we're still finding new aspects to it. She pulled up a hologram of a human skeleton walking. Next to it, she displayed the brain scans of various alien prisoners. Watch what happens in their threat response centers when exposed to human movement patterns. Stone watched as the alien brain scans lit up with activity. They're afraid. Not exactly, Dr. White said, adjusting her glasses. It's deeper than fear. It's more like recognition. Every species in the galaxy evolved alongside predators, developing natural responses to them. But none of them evolved alongside anything like humans. She changed the display to show a simulation of early humans hunting, the steady walking motion, the constant tracking, the relentless pursuit over days. Most predators in the galaxy are ambush hunters. They hide, they strike quickly, or they overwhelm with superior strength. When their prey escapes, they give up and find easier targets. But we don't give up, Stone said, understanding dawning in his eyes. Never, Dr. White agreed. Humans are the only known species that evolved as persistence hunters. We can track prey for days, walking them to exhaustion. We can run in the hot sun while other creatures have to rest. We can throw objects with incredible accuracy, another unique trait. But most importantly, she paused, pulling up detailed scans of human eyes. We have these. Stone studied the image. Our eyes. What's special about them? Forward-facing predator eyes with visible whites, Dr. White explained. Combined with our facial muscles, we can communicate incredible amounts of information just through our gaze. To other species, our eyes seem to bore into them, to track their every movement. And the way we maintain eye contact while walking forward. She shuddered slightly. To their instincts, we appear as an unstoppable force of nature. She led Stone to another display, this one showing various prison riot scenarios. In every case where human guards simply walked forward while maintaining eye contact, the prisoners retreated. Their natural instincts tell them that running will only trigger our pursuit response, and fighting will just lead to a drawn-out defeat. That's why the steady walk works better than running or showing aggression. Stone realized. Running would make us seem like normal predators, but walking triggers their deepest survival instincts. Dr. White finished. Their bodies tell them that if they don't submit, they'll be pursued until they collapse from exhaustion. No matter how strong they are, how well armored or dangerous, they can't escape the ancient terror of being hunted by something that never stops, never tires, and always finds its prey. Stone sat heavily in a nearby chair, processing this information. How do we use this ethically? We can't abuse this power. Dr. White's face grew serious. That's exactly why you're here, Captain. We need someone who understands both the science and the ethics, someone who can train guards to use this effect responsibly. She touched a control, bringing up the prison's safety records. Since implementing human guards, prisoner injuries have dropped by 90%. No fatalities, no successful escapes. We're not just containing them, we're keeping them safe. Stone stood up, looking at his reflection in one of the hologram displays. His eyes, he noticed, seemed different now that he understood their true power. So we're not just guards, he said quietly. We're deterrents. Our very presence keeps the peace. Exactly, Dr. White said. Now shall we begin working on your new training program? The emergency alarms blared through prison station X-227's corridors at exactly 3:47 a.m. station time. Captain Stone was jolted awake by the sound of his communication device, buzzing urgently on his bedside table. Captain. Blue's voice crackled through the speaker. Major power failure in high-security Wing B backup systems are failing. Containment fields are down in sectors 12 through 15. Stone was already pulling on his uniform as he responded. How many prisoners? 73 of our most dangerous inmates, Blue replied, panic evident in his voice. The alien guard teams are suited up with heavy weapons. But, no, Stone cut him off. Tell them to stand down. Get me every available human guard. Have them meet me at Junction 8 and tell them to come unarmed." There was a pause on the line. "Captain, are you sure? These are Class 5 threats we're talking about. The Mind Flayer from the Omega Cluster is in that wing. The Crystal Hive Queen too. Trust me," Stone said, remembering Dr. White's research. "And get me Lisa and Tom. We're going to test our theory." 10 minutes later, Stone stood before 20 human guards at Junction 8. Behind them, the sounds of chaos echoed from the high-security wing. Roars, screeches, and the sound of metal being torn. "Listen carefully," Stone addressed his team. "Everything we've learned about why we're effective comes down to this moment. We're going to walk in there, spread out in a steady patrol pattern, and make eye contact with every prisoner we see. Don't run. Don't show fear. Just walk, observe, and let nature do the rest." Lisa stepped forward. "What if they attack?" "They won't," Tom said firmly. "They'll want to, but their instincts won't let them. Remember, to them, we're not just guards. We're something their species have feared since before they were sentient." Stone nodded. "Form up. 5 teams of 4. Standard prison patrol formation. Steady pace. Let them see us coming." The human guards moved into position. As they entered the dark corridor of the high-security wing, emergency lights cast long shadows everywhere. A massive shape lurched toward them, the Mind Flayer, its tentacles writhing in the air. Stone made direct eye contact with its central cluster of sensory organs, kept walking. Steady, relentless. Behind him, he could hear his team doing the same. The Mind Flayer, a creature that could crush tanks with its mind, backed away. More prisoners appeared in the corridor. The Crystal Hive Queen, her crystalline body glowing with deadly energy. A pack of shadow stalkers, their black forms rippling in the dim light. Each time, the human guard simply walked forward, making deliberate eye contact. One by one, the prisoners retreated. Some tried to stand their ground, but the sight of humans walking steadily toward them, eyes locked on their positions, triggered something deep in their genetic memory. Within 20 minutes, 68 of the 73 escapees had returned to their cells voluntarily. 5 still missing, Lisa reported, checking her tablet. Stone smiled. "No, look at the life sign readings. They're hiding in the maintenance shaft ahead. All we have to do is walk that way, and they'll come out on their own." True to his prediction, as the human guards approached the maintenance shaft, 5 of the galaxy's deadliest beings emerged, heads lowered, and walked themselves back to their cells. As the last containment field reactivated, Director Gray appeared, his skin almost white with amazement. "Not a single shot fired," he said quietly. "Not one injury. How did you know it would work?" Stone watched his team conducting final checks, each guard moving with that same steady, confident walk that had kept humanity's prey running for millions of years. "Because now we understand what we are," he replied. "And more importantly, we understand how to use that knowledge to protect everyone, even from themselves." 3 days after the power failure incident, Captain Stone found himself in Director Gray's office, surrounded by holographic displays showing news reports from across the galaxy. Each one told the same story. A major prison incident resolved without a single injury or death. "The Galactic Council is asking questions," Director Gray said, his skin shifting through various shades of gray as he spoke. "They want to know how we managed to contain 73 Class 5 threats without weapons or violence." Stone watched the silent news footage playing in the air around them. "What have you told them?" "The truth," Gray replied. "But not all of it. They know human guards were instrumental in resolving the situation. What they don't know is why." He paused, turning all 4 eyes to Stone. "And now I must ask you the same question I was asked 15 years ago. Should we tell them?" Stone thought about everything he had learned, about human evolution, about pursuit predators, about the deep-seated fears that all other species carried in their genes. "If we tell them," he said slowly, "it could cause panic. Every species would suddenly see humans as as what we truly are, Gray finished. The most efficient hunters the galaxy has ever known. A species that evolved to never stop, never give up, never lose their prey. He smiled, an expression he had learned from working with humans. It would be chaos. A knock at the door interrupted them. Dr. White entered, carrying a data tablet. The final report from the incident, she said, handing it to Gray, including some interesting new data about the prisoners' biological responses during the event. Stone leaned forward. What did you find? Something fascinating, Dr. White said, pulling up a holographic chart. The prisoners' stress levels actually decreased once they returned to their cells. Not just to normal levels, but below their usual baseline. It's as if, she paused, looking for the right words. It's as if having humans establish clear dominance actually made them feel safer. Gray's skin rippled with interest. Explain. Think about it, Dr. White continued. In nature, knowing exactly where you stand in relation to a predator can be safer than uncertainty. These beings now know that humans will maintain order, but without unnecessary violence. They know what to expect. Stone remembered how calm the prisoners had been after the incident. Even the Mind Flayer, usually aggressive and unpredictable, had been almost peaceful during the following days. So we're not just preventing escapes, Stone said. We're actually creating a more stable environment for everyone. Exactly, Gray agreed. Which brings us back to our original question. The Galactic Council wants to implement this system in other prisons. They want to know our methods. How do we proceed? Stone stood and walked to the window, looking out at the vast prison complex. In one of the exercise yards, he could see Lisa conducting her rounds, the prisoners giving her a respectful distance without showing terror. We tell them what they need to know, he said finally. We share our procedures, our patrol patterns, our training methods. We explain that something in human biology makes us naturally suited for this work, but the deeper truth, he turned back to Gray and Dr. White. That stays between us, the guards who need to know, and the prison administrators who have to make these decisions. A compromise, Gray said, his skin showing approval. Give them the how, but not the why. It's not about keeping secrets, Stone explained. It's about using this knowledge responsibly. We're not here to terrorize anyone. We're here to maintain peace and safety. Sometimes that means knowing things that others aren't ready to know. Dr. White nodded. And the human guards? How do we help them handle this knowledge? Stone smiled. We train them to understand what they are, but more importantly, what they choose to be. We're predators, yes, but we're also protectors. That's the balance we need to teach. 6 months after the power failure incident, Captain Stone stood before a new class of human guards in Prison Station X-227's training center. Through the observation window, Director Gray and Dr. White watched as he prepared to share the truth with these recruits. Each of you was selected for this program because you showed specific qualities. Stone began, looking at the 20 fresh faces before him. Calm under pressure, excellent situational awareness, and most importantly, a strong ethical foundation. He brought up a hologram showing the prison's perfect safety record over the past 6 months. You've all heard rumors about why human guards are so effective in galactic prisons. Today, you learn the truth. In the next hour, Stone explained everything. The evolutionary history, the pursuit predator instincts, the effect of human eye contact on other species. He watched their expressions change from disbelief to understanding, and finally to a solemn acceptance of responsibility. But knowing why we're effective isn't enough, Stone continued. Now comes the hard part, learning to use this power ethically. He nodded to Lisa, who had become his chief training officer. She stepped forward and activated a training simulation. A holographic prison corridor appeared in the center of the room, filled with various alien prisoners. Watch how I walk, Lisa demonstrated, moving through the holographic scene. Steady, purposeful, but not aggressive. Eyes forward, making contact, but not staring too long. We're not here to terrorize. We're here to maintain order through presence alone. One of the new recruits raised his hand. Sir, if we're naturally this effective, why do we need so much training? Stone smiled. Because being a predator is instinct. Being a guardian is a choice. He walked through the hologram, letting it ripple around him. Every species in this prison evolved running from things like us. We could easily become their worst nightmare. Instead, we choose to be their best protection, even from themselves. The next few hours were spent practicing patrol patterns, learning to recognize signs of distress versus actual threats, and understanding how to use their natural advantages without abuse. Stone watched as each recruit began to grasp the delicate balance between power and responsibility. At the end of the day, Stone stood with Gray and Dr. White in the observation room, watching the recruits practice their movements. They're learning quickly, Gray noted, his skin showing pleased colors. The new protocols you've developed are remarkably effective. Dr. White nodded in agreement. The psychological impact on the prisoners is fascinating. They're not just compliant. They're calmer, more cooperative. It's as if having a clear, predictable presence of human guards actually helps them feel secure. Stone watched as one of the recruits perfectly executed a calm-down protocol, her steady walk and controlled eye contact causing a holographic prisoner to back down without any force needed. You know, Stone said thoughtfully, when I first learned about all this, I worried we might be becoming the monsters everyone thought we were. But now I see it differently. We're not using fear. We're using understanding. Understanding of what we are, what we can do, and most importantly, what we choose not to do. Gray's skin rippled with curiosity. And what is that choice, Captain? Stone smiled as he watched his trainees, each one learning to balance their predator nature with their protector role. We choose to be guardians. Yes, we're pursuit predators. Yes, we trigger deep-seated instincts in other species, but we use those traits to prevent violence, not cause it. To protect, not threaten. And that, Dr. White added, is why the program works. Not just because humans are natural predators, but because they choose to be something more. As the training session ended, Stone saw the future of galactic prison security taking shape before him. A future where the most feared species in the galaxy had become its most trusted protectors, not through force or terror, but through the simple, steady presence of humans who understood both their power and their responsibility. Remember, he told his recruits as they filed out, we're not here because we're dangerous. We're here because we choose to use that danger to keep others safe. That's the true reason human prison guards will always be necessary, not because of what we are, but because of what we choose to be.